Hi everybody, welcome to week 14. This week, as you can see, we have a little bitty tiny module, but there's a lot of information in this assignment sheet that we'll need to go over. As you can tell from the module, this week you're going to be composing your full rough drafts. Now, if you remember from when you read the syllabus, there are a lot of required components for the full rough draft and the final paper. So let's go over this assignment sheet in a bit of detail. Now remember, your full rough draft is the dress rehearsal for your final paper, so it should be complete and polished as possible, and that's to allow both your classmates and me to give you as much helpful feedback as we can so that your final paper is as successful as possible. I will actually be giving you a numerical grade using the rubric that I'll use on the final paper, which reflects how your full rough draft would score if it were submitted as is, so you know where you need to revise for the final paper. I've mentioned this a couple of times throughout the semester, but just as a reminder, a good strategy for writing these papers is to take a look at your sources and see how those authors organized and framed their articles, and then use those as a template for your own paper in terms of structure. Much like the templates or the sample assignments I've given you during the semester, you can use them as a guide for creating your own papers, but remember that all the content needs to be your own. Again, no sample assignment this week because each draft is going to be different, particularly when you factor in the documentation styles. Remember that the draft needs to meet all the requirements of the final paper, and we'll go over those in a few minutes here when we get to the checklist, but they are summarized right here for you. For common measurements, this paper should be presented in 12-point double-spaced font with 1-inch margins. This is regardless of documentation style. Now you're going to format your final paper according to the guidelines of your specific documentation style, but for now, it should follow these conventions for ease of reading and feedback. Grading for the full rough draft, as we talked about, is a little bit different. You will get the 5-point rubric that lets you know how many points you actually scored towards your course total, but then you'll also get the completed score or the completed rubric for 150 points that reflects the grade you'd receive if you submitted at this point. That score is not meant to give you the okay to stop working or to discourage you. It's meant, again, to help you see where you need to work when you revise. Full rough drafts that don't meet all the requirements, those on the checklist that we're going to talk about here in a few minutes, receive deductions for each missing requirement. Page 9 of your syllabus details deductions, but this is again to let you know how to remedy the issues that your full rough draft may have so that you get the highest grade possible on your final paper. And again, I do encourage you to visit the WRC if you are struggling with basic writing issues like complexity, focus, depth. I don't really provide specialized instructions for fixing basic writing errors. I'm more here to help you with the specific conventions of this assignment and this course. So let's go ahead and take a look at this checklist. Here's your basic rubric that you'll see. You're used to this, you've seen it. Now here's the checklist for the final paper. First and foremost, of course, all of your gateway assignments need to be in with a score of acceptable. If you are curious about whether or not they have all been submitted with a score of acceptable, feel free to send me an email. I'm happy to check that out for you just to make sure that everything is a-okay before you submit the final draft. Remember, if you do not have all your gateway assignments submitted or some of them are unacceptable and haven't been revised, it's an automatic F on the final paper and you're not eligible to pass the course. The second question is, does the paper follow the approved outline? This doesn't necessarily disqualify you from being eligible to pass the course, but if we didn't talk about any of those changes to your outline, it may result in a score of F on the final paper, particularly if your final paper is completely different from your outline and you didn't talk to me about that, because that can indicate that it isn't possibly original work. Is the essay 15 full double-spaced pages? Remember, this does not include any text wrapping pages, no abstracts, no cover pages, no references / works cited. It's just the body of the paper. For each page, and this does include half pages that you're short, remember that is an 11-point deduction from your total. Are at least 12 academic articles, and remember 6 of those need to be a minimum of 10 full pages long, included on the works cited or reference page. Remember, articles without page ranges will not count towards the 6 source total. So if there's no page ranges, I don't know how long it is, it doesn't count as one of these 6. For every article that you're missing, remember that is a 6.6-point deduction from the total. Are all 12 or more used in the text of the essay? There's no deduction if this requirement isn't met, but it is important to remember that if something's on your reference page, it needs to be in the body of your essay and vice versa. Are there quotes, summaries, paraphrases, and citations from interviews with at least 2 professionals in your field? Again, if you're missing one or both of those, it is 11 points total from the overall total. And does the author plagiarize either intentionally or unintentionally? Of course, if the answer is yes, it's an automatic score of 0 on the final paper. I will, of course, address any plagiarism, intentional or unintentional, when I grade your full rough draft. But if the problem persists through the final paper, that is an automatic score of 0 on the assignment. Your syllabus, again, covers that information for you if you'd like a more detailed explanation. So once I'm through this checklist and I figured out if you've met all the requirements of the paper and if there are any deductions where, I will move on to this rubric. These rubrics used to have point values, but I removed them simply because they're very uneven. So for example, the A criteria is only, in this case, 2 or 3 points. And then this F criteria is a lot of points. So basically I changed it so that it's a bit more holistic rather than numerical. But anyway, you'll get a score of somewhere out of 30 points based on your ability to meet this criteria, and so on and so forth. They are weighted differently depending on their importance in the overall scope of the paper. You can read exactly what you should be doing here and then get yourself an idea of what each criteria would meet or would earn you in terms of grade based on what you do. And of course, there'll be comments underneath here letting you know what you need to fix. At the bottom, you'll see a score, and then any deductions from the checklist will be here, and then you'll receive a total score and feedback based on your performance in the paper and what you need to fix for the final paper. I've also given you the link to the WRC's Moodle page in this week's module. If you're not familiar with MMCC's Writing Center, they're awesome. They have a Moodle page which allows you to submit your assignments online, completely online. So if you are not in the area or you work a unusual schedule and you're not able to get into the WRC while it's open, you can use their Moodle page to submit your paper and get feedback. However, you're also welcome to visit the WRC on either campus to get feedback on your final paper, but I strongly recommend doing that at some point in the next couple weeks here. Remember, the more eyes you have on your paper, the more feedback you get, the more likely you are to find where the paper needs improvement, and you'll be able to revise to get the highest score possible on the final paper. Again, as always, if there are questions, please feel free to email me or make an appointment for office hours. I'm happy to chat about full rough drafts at any time. I look forward to seeing what you do with this assignment, and I will talk to you in the Week 15 announcements video. Have a great week, everybody.